It is I who must begin. Once I begin, once I try here now, right where I am, not excuse myself by saying that things would be easier elsewhere, without grand speeches or ostentatious gestures, but more persistently to live in harmony with the voice of my being, as I understand it within myself. As soon as I begin that, I suddenly discover, my surprise, that I am neither the only one, nor the first, nor the important one to set out upon that road. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you and thank you all for joining us on this road. We are taking together this journey of faith that where all of our crossroads meet here at First Parish in Milton. It is so good to have all of you here with us. This is I am your interim minister for the rest of this year, and I am so glad to have all of you here on this first Sunday in the fall. First Sunday in the fall, and also first Sunday of our school.
Don't you even have to stay right over there? No, just connect out on these little tracks.
Well, good morning. As Hank said, I am Marcia Maurer. I'm a member of the worship committee, and I want to welcome everyone as well, whether you're new or whether you've been here for a while. If you are new, you will see in the pews packets that are there for you, and in the packets is a card you can fill out if you'd like to give us information about you, and you can put that card in the plate when it's passed a little later in the service. For those of you who, small children and all children are welcome in the meeting house, but if you do want to have your small child down in childcare, we have safe certified sitters down the hall in the link, and you're welcome to take your children there. Also, if you have any need for either a large print hymnal or order of service or a hearing device, those things can be found in the back of the church where you came in. We have, as usher greeters this morning, Dave Leggett is back there. Give a wave, Dave. Wave. He's an usher and a greeter, so if you want to connect with somebody and you're new and you need a little escorting around, he can help you with that. There are many announcements in your yellow piece of paper that will point you to lots of events that are happening throughout the church and throughout the week, so I direct you to read your yellow insertion. But in addition to that, we have well, actually, before I get to that, after the service, we have a coffee hour, and the coffee hour is over in the parish hall. You can get there either by going outside or down the link. And finally, we do have a number of other announcements. I think I'll start with Tim Steele, who wants to tell us a few things.
I just wanted to mention very quickly that the first Milton Community Concert of the year is coming up very soon on October 18th, which is a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. It's called Right on Your Doorstep, and it features two singers with Milton connections. One that's very familiar to us, Brandon Grimes, who has sung with us in the past and just finished a Broadway touring company production of Jekyll and Hyde and has done several off-Broadway shows. He's coming back to sing some Broadway and some opera. He'll be joined by Pauline Wells, local celebrity singer who's sung everywhere locally and is very well known, and will probably be singing a lot of more traditional Irish music and folk songs and patriotic tunes. So there's a great variety in this particular program. It is a free benefit concert. All of the money raised with a free will offering will go to benefit the music programs in the Milton Public Schools. So we hope you will all put on your calendar Sunday, October 18th at 4 o'clock, and this will come right after special congregational session called Beyond Categorical Thinking, which will be from 12 to 3. Then you can take a little break and then come to our concert at 4. So I hope you will all plan on coming to that. Thank you.
We are grateful to Amy Cavaldo for reigniting the Harvest Supper, which some of us old-timers can remember, a really wonderful evening, and she's here to tell you a little bit more about it.
Hi. You've probably been inundated with announcements about this harvest supper, but here is the last call for next Saturday night. It's a very busy time of year, I know, and for those of you with young kids, by the time Saturday night comes, you might be thinking, oh, I just want to stay home. But we really, really want you to come. We have a special yoga teacher to be with the kids during cocktail hour. We are paying for a bartender, so we need those bottles of wine. And it's just going to be a fun time. We want our room bursting at the seams with people and excitement and activities, just as we remembered it from the past. And for those of you who are newer to First Parish and never experienced it, you are in for a treat. So please come. There's a sign-up sheet for the potluck. That's going to be at the sign-up at social hour. I will be at the table. And I hope to see you all. Thank you.
And what time's it at?
It is at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, and I'll just say, as a person who's heading into my 20th year here, one of the first things I remember in my first year was going to the Harvest Supper, and it was a really, really wonderful, warm, welcoming event, so I really encourage people to participate. Last announcement, I believe the search committee, those who are here, want to come up and give us an update and give us some information.
Good morning, First Parish.
Good morning. Good morning.
So we have here presented several esteemed members of our ministerial search committee. We are lacking two in Tracy Robinson and Frank Graham, but we have Deb Alcibi, Jim May, I'm Elise Henricks, Charlie Williams, and Brigitte. And so I just want everyone to look at our faces. Remember, we are the people that are helping to choose our minister for next year. We want your input. You are the crucial voice that we are trying to parlay into the choosing of our next wonderful minister that's going to take us into the next few years. The most important thing that we're seeking right now is people to do your survey. If you did your survey, raise your hand. Yay. Excellent. Round of applause. We are up to about 65 surveys. We had 30 last year. That's great. We need 120 or more. So this actually impacts what ministers think about us. How many people completed the survey? How involved are the members of this church in choosing the next minister? It's really important. We're already starting to see trends, so please fill it out. We're hoping by October 4th to have up to 120 surveys or more, so please do it. Thank you. Secondly, please come to the Beyond Categorical Thinking that's already been talked about October 18th in the afternoon, right after church. This is going to be a great opportunity to think about how do we have already perceptions about what makes a good minister. How can we think outside the box and be as opening and welcoming to the next person who's going to be our minister so that we get the best option, the best choices for the person who's going to lead us forward. So please come to that. It's another opportunity. Lastly, we're going to be having some cottage meetings, we're calling them, in our own homes or some here at church, where we'll have smaller groups of people come together to give us direct feedback. So look out for those. There'll be sign-ups coming in the next couple of weeks. And finally, if you see any one of us around, you have a thought, tell it to us. Write us an email, give us any piece of information you think we need to know about how to choose our next minister. Thank you. That's it.
And lastly, I want to tell you something. You belong here. Maybe just for today, but we hope for longer. You belong here and we're happy to have you. Extending a generous welcome is a spiritual practice, and I invite you all to extend that welcome to your neighbors by taking a few minutes to greet them now, and to move up if you so desire.
In the sky, and forever hanging on.
On this first day of Sunday school, let us take a moment to dedicate and to commission those among us who have chosen to take on the important responsibility of church school teaching. At this time, I want to invite all those who are going to teach Sunday school this year, even if it's not this semester. If you're going to teach Sunday school this year, would you please stand up? And as I do, I want to remind you that there are already a group of teachers who are out teaching the littlest of our kids. They're already out in their classrooms doing their stuff. Doing the work to which we dedicate to that. Can I also invite Miriam to stand up? Miriam, who is, of course, our religious educator, to stand up. I'm going to ask a series of questions. First to the teachers, and then to our youth and young people, and then the entire congregation. And the answer to all of you is 2 words. We do. To you teachers, let me say this. In taking on this responsibility, you have committed yourselves to nurturing the spirits of the youngest members of this congregation. You are placing love above self-interest, sympathy and kindness above harshness. You are placing teaching above sermons and coffee hour. Some of you have done this all before, and others of you are doing this for the first time. We appreciate and are grateful for your efforts in safeguarding the free spirit and passing our heritage on to our children. Do you promise now before our young people and this congregation to do your best to honor them, teach them, and nurture their religious growth as Unitarian Universalists? We do. Can I ask all of our young folks and youth to stand up? Do you, children and young people of the church school, promise to honor, respect, and nurture these teachers with your hearts and with your minds? We do. Let's just try that again, all right? Do you promise to honor, respect, and nurture these teachers with your hearts and with your minds? We do. All right. Do you, the rest of the congregation of First Parish Milton, promise these teachers and these young people your support? Oh, keep standing up. Keep standing up. Please promise these teachers and young people your support, knowing that religion cannot be taught only in a classroom, but must also be encouraged in the home and beyond. We do. That's what Take up the challenge of this good work. May you have fun, grow, and learn together, and be a continuing example of the importance of religious education, both to us gathered here and to the world beyond. And now we are seeing our young folks and their teachers off to their classes.
This morning's reading is called She'd Had Enough by Eric Wickstrom. After many years in a congregation, she'd had enough. Knowing the people as well as she did, she knew what they said on Sunday and what they did on Monday did not always equate. More often than not, Sunday was the one day of the week on which you could tell that people believed what they said they did. The rest of the week, she could see little difference between the other members of the congregation and the hypocrites they denounced. And the words of the hymns no longer spoke to her. They talked of things she had long ago given up believing, or were words that had no real meaning in her life. And the sermons weren't much better. Entertaining, perhaps, sometimes giving her something to think about. But a good book or an independent film could do the same. And besides, she'd had to go when she was a kid and when her kids were young, but now? No, she'd had enough. And so she began walking in the woods on Sunday mornings, alone with her thoughts and the rustling leaves. She felt a freedom she had not known in a long time. She got more from the sunshine than from a year of sermons, and the birds surpassed any anthem she'd heard. This was good. This was right. The woods were her sanctuary. The wind was all the preaching she needed. This continued for some time until one day she realized that the birds sang together and the trees swayed as one, but she was by herself. No squirrel cared that she had a new grandchild. No rhododendron could help her wrestle with her mother's Alzheimer's. The flora and fauna did not face what she faced as a human, and so could not offer their understanding. Nor could she really offer herself to any of them. So she returned to her congregation, and she saw herself in the people who were trying to live what they believed. And she heard her life in the hymns and the readings and the sermons, or at least some of the time. And she never gave up her walks in the woods, but she realized she needed both.
Of us or so met in a small room just off the parish hall of the First Universalist Church of Auburn, Maine. And we were presented with 3 enormous foam dice. And instead of having dots on the sides of these dice, instead there were words there. It was a workshop on transgender identity. And on each of these dies, each of these dies had a specific, represented a specific aspect of a person's identity. The first die, which had 6 sides on it, represented the bodies that we are born into. Male, female, intersexed. That's the more respected term than some of you might remember the term hermaphrodite, but intersex, someone who is born with both a set of sexual reproduction organs. And each of these words appeared twice on this die. The second dice had 8 sides and represented one's sexuality, that is to say, whom we are attracted to. Heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, asexual. The third die represented the way a person expressed their gender. Male, female, androgynous, transgender. And going around the circle, each of us had a turn to toss these 3 dice. The first was biologically female, attracted to both men and women, and expressed their gender as a woman. The next person was intersexed, attracted to women and expressed themselves as trans. You get the idea of what it was like. And now, that was 15 years ago, and today we might not use the term androgynous. We might that blank on the die might say gender queer, which is a term used to describe anyone who breaks the distinction of gender, regardless of their self-defined gender identity. Those who queer gender, as in the old definition of the word queer, meaning strange or different. It could also be used to express the fluid nature of gender stereotypes. So people will identify as genderqueer sometimes for themselves to sort of say, it's none of your business how I express myself. So I'm going to be a little confusing for you to figure it out. And now you need to come and speak and meet with me as a person. And sometimes it also reflects perhaps their own questioning about how they would like to be, they like to express their gender. It was this, like, eye-opening, amazing sort of workshop for me. You know, I have to admit, like, that I didn't know what to expect. This congregation in central Maine was 20% gay and lesbian folk, and there were 4 or 5 transgender folk who came there to this church. In central Maine, people drove for hours and hours. There was one person who drove an hour and a half each Sunday to come to church without traffic. We all complain about driving from one side of Milton to the other to come here. An hour and a half so they could be there and it could be in a place where they could express who they are honestly. Why do I tell you this story? Well, this month's worship theme is identity. 2 weeks ago, I talked about the identity of this church. Last week, I talked about the identity of church in our larger culture. And today, I want to talk to you about your identity as members, your individual identities as members of First Parish in Milton, Unitarian Universalist. That workshop I described helped to expand my thinking about people's identities. There are identities that we are born with. And there are identities that we are given. Identities also that emerge from within us. And ones that we cultivate in ourselves. And there are identities that we are expected to just accept and take along with ourselves. And sometimes we let go of those identities. Sometimes we let go of some aspects of those identities, and it changes our lives, and it changes the lives of the people around us. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's not. In my church in Medford, there was only one member of the congregation who had grown up in Medford. Medford is a very Italian city. And she was Italian. She said, I remember talking to her about this, and she said, even though I know there are lots of people who no longer attend the Roman Catholic Church, they would never think of going to another church. Being Roman Catholic and being Italian is so joined together in the minds of the folks in that community, it would be really difficult for folks to come to this church. She said the only reason why that she felt that she could come to the Unitarian Universalist Church there in Medford was the fact that she'd already struggled with and wrestled with these concepts of identity. And also identity with, in part because of her identity as a lesbian. She said, I was already on the outside thinking differently about identity in our community when I decided to start coming to that church. What would it be like for you to let go of your identity? Are you even able to comprehend what it would be like to change your identity? Of course, there are events which change our identity, changes the way of who we think we are. For instance, when you move from being a healthy person to being someone with chronic health problems. Or perhaps even the other way. I had a friend whose son had battled leukemia as a child and then got better.
And then he moved schools, and he was having a difficult time. And his parents realized that part of the reason why he was having a hard time was that at his previous school, he was always known as the kid who had cancer. And so they cut him a bit more slack. But at this new school, nobody knew his story. They knew him only as this healthy kid. And so they weren't cutting him as much slack. We change our identities when we go from being a single person to being a couple, or the other way around. From having a steady job to not having one, to thinking you know your family and finding out you don't know your family. I had a friend who, when her mother died, she was boxing up her mother's things, and in the middle of all of these boxes and all this stuff, she discovered a photograph of her mom in a nun's habit. And she realized it was a whole story of her mother's life and her own life that she did not know until that very moment. These are examples of times when our identities change, right? Not the identities we are necessarily hardwired with, but the identities that we've taken on, our identities that are changed because of what we believe and how our beliefs change our identities. And so here's my question for you all today. What is your religious identity as a member of First Parish Church in Milton, Unitarian Universalist? How do you understand your religious self in relation to this religious tradition? For most of you, at one time, you were not active in this church. And then you were. You made a conscious decision to join with the folks already gathered here. You added this community's identity to your own. How do your spiritual beliefs fit in with what we as a community believe? Is it because you don't like rules and we're this non-creedal faith? Maybe you have a variety of spiritual beliefs, or you're still trying to figure that out, and you realize this is the place for you to come and perhaps figure those things out. Or you came here because you want your children to be taught certain things, or because it's close to where you live. And to be honest, if we up and moved to Randolph, you probably might not come along. And to be honest, all those reasons are okay. But my question to you is this: do you have a religious identity as a member of this congregation and of this larger faith movement? And how would you know if you did? Often, the first reaction to how we form our religious identity is often to define ourselves against someone else or something else. This is easy, right? This is often the first reason why many people come to Unitarian Universalism, because we are not the X, Y, and Z church. We are, in fact, the exact opposite of the X, Y, and Z church. With our support of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender issues and persons, our high number of female clergy, our lacks of rituals, or our interesting spin on the rituals that we do have here. For many people and a lot of different faiths, we are pretty close to the exact opposite of what they believe. But of course, we can only get so far by defining ourselves against another religious tradition. Just as each of us can only develop our own religious identity by not comparing ourselves to our beliefs that we had when we were younger. It drives you crazy. We all do compare ourselves to others. Part of our identity is always against someone else. Americans compare themselves to Canadians. Red Sox fans compare themselves to Yankees fans. It's unavoidable not to do so in some way. But we have to be conscious of the way we do this. We define ourselves. The writer Walter Ben Michael, in his book, The Trouble with Diversity, gives a very interesting definition based not on identity, but on belief. He first points out that as a society, we have dealt with issues of race and sexism and homophobia by understanding the differences as being identity-based. That we have more or less said that all cultures are equal. And this has been used as a tool for us to at least try and get people to understand each other. The problem with this agenda arises when groups that are defined not by a cultural background or ways that they are hardwired, that their identities are hardwired in them, whether by race or sexuality, but by beliefs. When people with certain beliefs say that they are a culture. So when a fundamentalist Christian or a fundamentalist anyone identifies themselves as a culture, they demand that we take their beliefs as we would a culture and not question them because we have established that all cultures are equally good. Thus, genuine disagreements are turned into mere differences of perspective. Thomas Jefferson once said that it made little difference to him if his neighbor believed in 20 gods or no God at all. Something that we as Unitarian Universalists would agree with at heart. The problem is, however, that what if our neighbor believes that abortion is murder, or that same-sex marriage should be illegal, or some other thing that you would disagree with and really grates against your own set of beliefs? Maybe it's not a problem until they want to change the laws surrounding those issues, thus enforcing their culture on you. And what has happened over and over again in recent years is that people who are often in the majority have claimed to be victims of prejudice, thus allowing them not to have to debate or discuss an issue, but to just play the victim card and end the debate. People have allowed that to happen. We've seen it with the county registrar in the South, not wanting to sign same-sex marriages. Last week I talked to you about my friend who, his church in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, had a Black Lives Matter banner out in front of their church, and how a rally was started up by folks who held a Police Lives Matter rally as well. My pal Jake said the most amazing thing was for him, he went to the rally and gave out his card and tried to speak to people. But he said the most amazing thing for him was to stand there and hear people talking about him from a megaphone, who didn't know him, who wouldn't meet him. Members of his congregation came with him as well. We don't often have to hold our faith up at rallies where people don't believe in our faith. What would that be like for you? Maybe some of you have. Maybe when we were fighting for marriage equality here in the state, you came with banners and you came with your religious leaders up to the State House. Maybe you got nasty mail and phone calls, as many of our congregations did during that period, from strangers, perhaps even more frightening from people that you knew. How strong is your conviction to the beliefs of this faith? You know, because in a faith such as ours, with such a wide diversity of belief, it's often difficult to go really deep into what it is we believe and how those beliefs hold us, how they root us in how we should live in the world. It's often difficult, so often we just get lazy. We don't really think about those values that much. We think about maybe perhaps our own values, but maybe not the larger religious values that we as a church have. but what it is that we have here is really important. Our values matter. The community that we have transforms lives, as it has transformed many of your lives. It has provided a sanctuary for others, provided a sanctuary for you as well. Sometimes our folks are troubled when asked to go deep on important issues, to take stands when nothing else in the faith is all that strenuous. Sometimes we need to do it. Sometimes we need to do things that may seem political but are in fact religious. Because when we do that, they influence our religious identities. They make our religious identities stronger. This past week, we've had the Pope in town. Well, not really in town, but on the East Coast. In Milton, the schools were closed on Wednesday in recognition of Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, a day of prayer and fasting. This past week, 2 million Muslims went on the Hajj, traveled to Mecca, one of the requirements of Islam, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Of course, most of us wouldn't have known it if there hadn't been a horrible loss of life that had went on there as well because of an accident and a stampede that occurred. We've seen the overwhelming approval and news of the Pope in town. I get my phone buzzes when the Pope does something this week. Are you a little jealous that you can't find that sort of excitement that people have found with the Pope this week? Why can't we have a religious leader with sort of rock star gravitas? Why aren't there motorcades and news alerts for some Unitarian Universalist? His ability to get people to talk about the poor and the immigrants has been fantastic. For those of you who left the Roman Catholic Church, do you find yourselves a little homesick? That's okay too. We can't create our identity just by negatives. There's too much of us. There's much for us to bring from our past faiths into this one, to help us to define and make deep our religious identities. It's easy to talk about who we want to be in church, out in the world, in counseling, but to live it's not as easy. And yet, easy or not, it is important for us to be those people. We need to find a way to practice being the people whom we are called to be. I've said on many occasions that church is a place where we get to practice what it means to be human. It is a place where we can be safe in starting down that road to finding our authentic selves. Just like the first Universalist church in Auburn, Maine was for so many folks who would travel for hours and miles to come and be themselves. I want you in the coming weeks to think about your religious identity here in this church. If you haven't taken your survey yet, think about that as you take that survey. And let me also just say, for those of you who are visiting us for the first time, or you've been coming here for a couple of weeks, take the survey too. You know, we hope that you're gonna keep coming, and that you're gonna want to be part of this community. You know, and by seeing the questions that we are asking ourselves about what it is we believe and how we should be as a community, you might go like, I can't believe these people are this honest, asking all of these really difficult questions about belief. Or you might say to yourself, these people are crazy. They're asking all these questions. Why would you ask yourself all of these questions? I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that you're kind of crazy. When you agreed to come and take part in this community, you are agreeing to not be part of a faith that's going to get announcements on your phone about. We live in a culture where religion isn't cool anymore, right? Even with the Pope. But you are agreeing to deepen yourself, to find out more, to learn more, to travel on a journey where you're going to find out more about yourself and more about the community that you live in. And by going deeper, by living your values and living the values of this faith about tolerance and respect and the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including you, you gain a deeper insight into who you are and how you are to be in the world. For all that is our life, we sing with thanks and praise. For all life is a gift that we are bound to live. It is a wonderful gift for us to live our lives and be aware of what it is, and be aware of the gift that we have and that we can share and bring to other people. To live in the now and know that we are setting the table for people to come after us, where they too can find sanctuary, where they too can find out who they are and how they too can transform this world. Amen. Please join in singing our second hymn. It's number 128 in the silver and gray hymnals, For All That Is Our Life, 128.
Eternal wisdom, show us How much of what we pray for in the world about us is waiting to be found within ourselves. In our ever-changing world so full of what is wonderful, help us, Sacred One, to accept with gratitude all that gladdens us, and to accept with fortitude all that brings us grief. May we take time to watch the morning and evening skies. May we look often and long into the marvelous earth and all the lives upon it. To be with heart and soul a friend and neighbor and a part of humankind. We rejoice in the heritage bequest to us from yesterday as we celebrate festivals of faith and hope. May we be learning always from all that we see and do, and from all that happens to us. And if the shadows overtake us, may we not dim within ourselves the light that helps others to live. We pray for all of the world religions, followers. Pray for this past week, the ongoing time of celebrations and festivals, days marked with pain and struggle. Sadie asked us to pray for Lala, who was shot because she wanted to go to school. God, we have seen that when the message of religion is about the transformation of society for the better, people listen. People clamor for messages of hope and progress. And may we here contribute to that message in our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. Amen. Let us be together in silence for a few moments. Our faith is a grand vision filled with a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, a number of mid-sized congregations, and many small congregations. But no matter its size, each of our congregations depend on each of their members. Each of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, help make that grand vision real. Individually and together. We are building a world filled with peace, justice, love, and joy. The offer will be given and joyfully received.
Praise
Please join me in the unison dedication. May these gifts be spent for strength and faith in the comfort, food, and shelter of those in need, and may be spent for thank you. And please join in singing our final hymn, number 52 in the Silver and Gray hymnals, The Sweet Fields of Autumn, 5-2. Take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples which spread out in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has the right to sit down and feel hopeless. There's too much work to do. Our worship over our service begins.